Back here on Last Call, Jake Kiefer alongside Nathaniel Finch, and want to extend a thank you to Graham Shear for coming on and talking UINDY football, tennis, and soccer for us.
Some good things going on with UINDY sports here. It's a lot of fun to watch.
Absolutely. Speaking of good things, well, not good things, I guess. My Hoosiers, man, they just ruin me every week. It was a tough outing for Indiana, and I don't really know what else to say about it.
Well, my Boilermakers are right there with you, but kind of the opposite. So IU started, and of course they fall to Rutgers 24-17. They started with a 14-0 lead in the first quarter. It was really an impressive showing on offense to start things off. Obviously, you get the kickoff return for a touchdown. The offense drives down the field, scores a touchdown. Things are looking good. Looks like you could blow this Rutgers team out. But then it just kind of all spiraled downhill from there. Isn't that how most of the season's gone for the Hoosiers?
The entire season. And I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know if it's poor recruiting. I'm very disappointed in the way things have turned out. I mean, Connor Bazelak has not really shined as a IU quarterback. Jalen Lucas only getting 4 touches a game. It's been, I mean, he's one of the better running backs on the roster, and he had the return for touchdown. It just doesn't make sense to me.
I don't know. It seems like hope gets lost more and more as the season goes on. IU starts 3-0, right? Everyone's singing their praises the first 3 games. All of a sudden now they're 3-5, and it's just been kind of a tough skid.
It's a struggle to get bowl eligible, and that's probably not going to happen because they have a tough stretch coming up where they hit Ohio State and they hit Michigan, or they already played Michigan, they hit Michigan State. So I would love to say I'm looking forward to the rest of IU's season, but I think it's probably about time to pack it in.
Let's talk about another Indiana team. This is the Purdue Boilermakers, and typically this is a part where I kind of make fun of you and your IU fandom for a little bit and then start to rub it on how Purdue did. They didn't do too hot either. But this was kind of the opposite. They started slow. Wisconsin had the big lead. Purdue came firing back. They got 14 unanswered points at the end of the game. It just wasn't enough to defeat Wisconsin on the road. And it was kind of a tough loss here for the Boilermakers. The final score there, 35-24.
Yeah, Aiden O'Connell, he's kind of in the same boat as Connor Bazelak for the Hoosiers. O'Connell threw 3 picks. I mean, he did have a rushing touchdown. Now, he threw for 320 yards, so there's the big difference there. He's actually completing passes, and the coaches are scripting plays that work for once and have for Purdue in the entire season. But the run game has been pretty impressive as well for him. Devin Mockabee, I mean, 23 carries, 108 yards, a touchdown. Braden Allen on Wisconsin's side, 16 carries, 113 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, Wisconsin was better in the run game, but Purdue looked sustainable in the run game.
Yeah, and it was tough for Purdue because, I mean, we've seen a lot of great games this year from Aiden O'Connell, especially to started really hot. It's not like him to throw 3 picks, right? And especially not have any passing touchdowns. So the hope there is that it was just a fluke game and that they can continue to roll through the rest of the season. But it was just kind of a tough showing when your quarterback throws 3 picks, and it's definitely not what they were wanting. And we see here they're down 28-3, and then things start to go. So that's kind of the opposite of IU, where they started with a big lead and then dropped it. Here it was, Purdue with Payne Durham and Aiden O'Connell who started to get things going.
Yeah, Payne Durham looked good. I mean, that one-handed catch was pretty awesome to see happen. But Wisconsin, they're just the better team in this game, and they shouldn't be on paper. They haven't looked great all season, and that's kind of the duality of Purdue football at this time.
Yeah, for sure. The final score there again, 35-24. Not what you want for Purdue fans or IU fans, as that Rutgers game ended 24-17.
Yeah, my big question for you, though, Nathaniel, is what happened to the top 25 vote-receiving Purdue team that beat Minnesota in Minneapolis? I mean, what went wrong?
I don't understand. And because basically this whole season has been so up and down. You've had great games from Purdue, tough losses where it's like towards the end they lose by a field goal or whatnot. But then they've got games like this one where they just lay an egg, and it just doesn't look like the Purdue team. I think you can chalk most of it up to turnovers, though, because O'Connell was not himself. And it's just not fluke interceptions. They were definitely on him, but it's just one of those games where you're just not feeling it.
Yeah, it was tough for sure. Tough for me to watch as well. I always root for the in-state teams when they're not playing IU. Well, let's switch gears and look around the rest of Division I. I personally was a big fan of the Clemson-Syracuse game. Number 5 Clemson, number 14 Syracuse, both teams undefeated, It was a very interesting game, that's for sure.
And it all came down to chalk. It was Clemson who won. They remain ranked 5th. Those top 6 rankings in the AP poll didn't really change at all. But for Clemson, it was just a really gritty win. It was good to see them come back at the 17-point fourth quarter for Clemson. They handed Syracuse their first loss of the season.
It's a good Syracuse squad, too, but the real difference, Clemson's run game. Will Shipley, 27 carries, 172 yards, 2 touchdowns, Toriano Clinton-esque stat line. Garrett Schrader as well looked good in the pocket. He did throw an interception, but he threw a touchdown as well. It was fun to watch Phil Malfa from Clemson, 18 carries, 94 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, it just seemed like Clemson had all the answers for anything that Syracuse was thrown at them.
The final score was 27-21, and was just a really fun game, right? So you get a lot of these college football games where it is 40, 50, 60-point blowout, but this is one of those fun ones that was a lot of fun to watch.
Is Clemson for real this year?
I think they are.
You think they can make the playoff and make some noise?
I think they can. Maybe they're not like number 1 as good as Georgia, but I think they're a real team that can sneak in and do some damage for sure.
I think you're right. I think this win actually proved that because they really had to grind their teeth and pull it out by any means necessary with their quarterback struggling. Does Syracuse take any negatives away from this performance, though, besides the fact that they lost?
You definitely want to put up more points, but, I mean, you're going up against a top 5 team in the nation, and you hang in. You're only down by 6 at the end of the game. You got to feel pretty good about it, but, I mean, again, it's not – they didn't win, and that's what the final goal is. So I don't think that it's the end of the season for them, but it's definitely not – I mean, they're not coming out too happy because they didn't get the win. It's just – it could have been worse.
Finish out the rest of the season strong. We could see them in a New Year's 6. Who knows? That's just how things play out. It's college football, right?
For sure.
Well, next in the column, Alabama got back in the win column. It was a good performance. Bryce Young's back. He's cooking. They beat Mississippi State, who came in ranked number 24, 30-6. I think it was a very convincing performance from Alabama.
Yeah, and this was not one of those close games because Alabama was able to come up with a lot of points. Not the normal Alabama 50-something points we're used to seeing, but it was definitely a good showing where they were able to come in and put a ranked team down the way they did, only allowing them to score 6. And then you see Bryce Young, like you mentioned, he was cooking. He had himself a great day, and it was good to see coming off an injury that he's still been kind of rusty coming back.
Yeah, he did so well, and then they were up by so much that Jalen Milroe got a little run at the end of the game. So Young really spread the ball around. 7 Alabama receivers with multiple receptions, really sharing the love. Ja'Cory Brooks, though, he was fantastic. 3 receptions for 74 yards, so not necessarily the big reception numbers, but that yardage, 74 yards, what more can you ask?
Yeah, exactly, and it was just good to see Alabama be back, right? It was kind of weird seeing them on the schneid for a couple weeks, but they're ranked 6th. I think if they can finish out the season strong, they'll slip into that top 4. We'll see what they can do. They can definitely be a team that makes a lot of damage and ends the season as one of the top.
And they could be one that people would be sneaky. They'd be a sneaky pick because they've gone down in the rankings. Yeah. People are kind of doubting them a little bit. They could very well bust your CFP bracket per se.
It's not often that Alabama's the underdog, but I think you're right. They would come into that tournament as an underdog, and whenever Nick Saban's an underdog, that's definitely bulletin board material. He can get the guys fired up.
Oh yeah. Well, speaking of underdogs, TCU. This is my new favorite team right now. TCU, man. They're fun to watch. Number 8 came into this one and beat Kansas State 38-28 in convincing comeback fashion.
Yeah, you can't call these guys underdogs anymore. It was a great win, 38-28, and that was kind of the score for most of the fourth quarter as well. So they put up most of their damage the first 3 quarters and then just kind of held on to that lead, salted the clock away towards the end.
That's 2 weeks straight that they've had double-digit comeback wins. It's been very convincing to watch from a playoff perspective. I think I'm ready to take a shot on them being in the playoff. Max Duggan, told you to remember the name last week.
You did.
17 for 26, 280 yards, 3 touchdowns. The man is on fire. He's fun to watch. He's got a big arm. He senses pocket presence. He's sneaky athletic, too. When the pocket breaks down, he's able to get out there and gain some yardage with his feet.
Kansas State's a good team, too, right? They were ranked 17 this game. They do fall down to 24, but it's not just some Joe Schmo team that TCU was able to put away. It was a great win against what ended up being a top 20 team at the time.
And you got to keep in mind, Kansas State lost Adrian Martinez early in this contest, and Will Howard had to step in, and I'd say he did pretty well. 225 yards, 2 touchdowns, did throw a pick, but that's kind of to be expected from a backup who didn't even know that he was going to be playing until 2 plays into the game.
Yeah, definitely didn't do too bad. So keep an eye on TCU moving forward this year.
Well, when we come back from break, we're going to get into some NFL review and then preview Monday Night Football. Stay tuned.